Baseball is a very old game with a long and rich history, and with that comes the tons of men to play it and the records or incredible feats that have been made along the way. There are a ton of baseball records, some that can be broken, and others that won't ever be, and that's what we'll be discussing in this video. To start out, Joe Seaworld did something that we most definitely will never see again. In today's day and age, a lot of hitters have the approach of not caring if they strike out if it means they can hit from more power, like Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton. They strike out a considerable amount, but are still incredible players. Not everyone is like that, of course, but even the most extreme contact hitters who refuse to strike out will not ever accomplish what Joe Seaworld from Mobile, Alabama accomplished. In 1925, Seaworld struck out 4 times. That's it. He struck out just 4 times in 699 plate appearances. From 1925 until the rest of his career, his total strikeouts in a season were single digits, as he never struck out more than 9 times in a season after 1924. This guy is the definition of putting the bat on the ball and not swinging at pitches outside the zone. It's incredible. Seaworld holds the record for the lowest strikeout rate in Major League history, punching out on average only once every 73 plate appearances, while also having the most consecutive games without a strikeout at 115. Now, of course, this all happened in a very different era than today, but it's still incredibly impressive and something that will never happen again. Cobb was an incredible hitter, one of the best ever, some many look at as the best ever, and you may have a point. He has the highest career batting average ever in history at 366. We're talking about a guy who, besides his first 2 years in the league, which weren't even full seasons for him, never hit below 320. Imagine doing that for 22 years straight. That's insane, and something that just isn't happening no matter how good of a hitter anyone is in today's game. Cobb was also a madman, and a big enough madman to find a way to steal home plate 8 times in 1912. Nobody steals home anymore, and if they do, it's a massive deal and will be talked about for weeks after it happens. Now imagine it happening 7 more times by the same person. Exactly, you can't. Inside the park home runs are pretty rare. Not the rarest thing in baseball necessarily, but certainly not something you will see all the time. Well, Sam Crawford of the 1901 Cincinnati Reds was quick enough to hit 12 in one season. Yes, in 131 games played in 1901, Sam Crawford hit 16 triples and 12 inside the park home runs. You're lucky if you can even get half of that in a career. We're going to stick with Sam Crawford for the next record. As I mentioned, he hit 16 triples in 1901. He hit 309 triples for his entire 19-year career. All of the players who are as close to that record as possible are all dead, with guys like Jose Reyes and Carl Crawford being 2 of the latest players to get close enough to 309 triples. And by close enough, I mean 131 for Reyes and 123 for Crawford. In 1884, Old Hoss Radbourn won 60 games. Seriously, this will never be touched for the sole obvious reason that starting pitchers don't even throw nearly the amount of games required to have a shot at this. He also threw 678 2/3 innings that year. I'm pretty sure nobody will throw that amount ever again. And to top it all, he had a 1.38 ERA in 73 starts and 678 2/3 innings thrown. Stuff like that is just funny to look back on. The reason guys could throw that many innings back then was because they were undoubtedly throwing much softer. Nowadays, if a pitcher throws over 200 innings, he's considered a horse or innings eater. Now multiply that by 3 and add 78 2/3 innings and you have what Old Hoss Radbourn was able to do in 1884. In 1886, Matt Kilroy struck out 513 hitters. The modern day record is 383 set by Nolan Ryan in 1973, and since 2000, the best is Randy Johnson, who struck out 372 hitters in 2001. Striking out 200 hitters in a single season is a great deal, let alone 300. Now you're talking over 500? Impossible. The Cy Young Award is called the Cy Young Award for a reason, and that's because Cy Young started 815 games, the most all-time, through well over 7,000 innings, the most all-time, 749 complete games, the most all-time, and more. When you pitch that many games and throw that many innings, you're bound to win some games. You're bound to lose some, too. Cy Young holds the record for the most losses ever with 316. Doesn't mean he was bad, obviously, he just pitched so many damn games. His win total is 511, and I hate to break it to you, but that's never happening again unless someone gets a cybernetic arm that can never get injured and decides to pitch with it. I guess it could happen then in that case, but it's very unlikely Cy Young's 511 wins, 316 losses, over 7,300 innings pitched, 815 games started, and 749 complete games will ever be remotely broken. Deacon McGuire threw out 189 runners attempting to steal in 1895. 189. The next closest is Oscar Stanage in 1911 with 156. Paul Lo Duca had a really great 2003 season where he threw out a ton of attempted base stealers. Did he get remotely close? Not quite. 57 caught stealing by Paul Lo Duca in 2003. That should give you an idea of how likely it is this record set by McGuire will be broken. McGuire also holds the record for most caught stealing in a career with 1,459 runners caught stealing from behind the plate. Johnny Kling is the next closest, with over 300 less. During World War II, a ton of players were sent out to actually fight, of course not being able to play baseball during that time because of it. The Cincinnati Reds were just one of many trying to fill out their depleted roster, and that's when they discovered Joe Nuggsaw. The team originally intended for Nuggsaw to be with the team by the summer, but after losing even more players due to the war, Reds general manager Warren Giles ended up getting permission from Nugsaw's principal to have him on the team by opening day. Yes, you heard that correctly, a principal. Joe Nuggsaw was a 15-year-old high school student. The Reds were so desperate that they signed him. With that being said, he was a pretty big kid at 6 feet 2 inches tall and 190 pounds. He was a lefty and threw hard, and once the teenage Nuggsaw started pitching in the big leagues, this great quote came from him. Quote, "I was pitching against 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, kids 13 and 14 years old. All of a sudden, I look up and there's Stan Musial and the likes. It was a very scary situation." End quote. Nuggsaw actually ended up having a pretty solid career, pitching in 16 seasons, mostly all for the Reds, with a 3.90 career ERA, getting named an All-Star twice. After retiring in 1967, Nuggsaw stuck with the Reds and became a part of their broadcasting team all the way until 2004. There is now a rule in Major League Baseball that you cannot be younger than 18 and play in the big leagues, so we should probably never see anyone that young become a Major League player ever again. As some of you have probably noticed by now, every record that I've mentioned in this video, and really most of the craziest, most ridiculous records made in baseball history, were done a long time ago, many in the 1800s. This is of course because baseball was a much different game back then. Relievers only came into games when the starting pitcher was really tired and didn't want to pitch anymore, guys didn't throw as hard, the times were just different. Basically everything was different about the game compared to what it is today. It's almost like two totally different sports. There is one record, however, that was not made that terribly long ago that will never be touched. It didn't happen recently, and it in fact has been a while, but we're not talking about the black and white times here. This was in the modern era. On May 30th, 1982, Cal Ripken played a baseball game. And he would keep playing baseball games, never missing a single one for years. And on September 6, 1995, Cal Ripken broke the record playing in 2,131 consecutive games, but he didn't stop there, not missing a game until 1998, and finally sitting out in a game after playing in 2,632 straight games. This, to me, is the #1 realistic record that will never be remotely even halfway done, let alone broken. The closest player to that record since it was done was Miguel Tejada from 2000 to 2007, playing in 1,152 straight games. You can double that, and that's still over 300 games away from Ripken's record. Nowadays, players rarely ever play one full season, as a lot of them get hurt and also have scheduled days off, and that's a good thing. You need to give guys days off sometimes. It's healthy for not only their bodies, but for their minds. But with all that goes another record that is practically impossible to ever be even halfway done. Let me know what your most impressive record is, and thank you for watching.